Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with my long overdue full review of the Hifiman He1000Se. And this is actually my second attempt at this video because last night I actually shot the entire video, which ended up 48 minutes long, and I know that's a little bit too long, so I'm going to try to make this one a little bit shorter. But anyway, after shooting a 48-minute video, 2 seconds into watching it, I realized that there was one of the knobs was loose on my tripod. When I turned the camera on, I rotated it over to the left, and I was barely in the screen, and you saw wall and stuff over there, and it looked terrible. So anyway, I'm redoing this video, and I'm not sure how I did that. I've done 270 something videos. Haven't made that mistake before, but anyway, this is my second attempt at this video. This is a very nice headphone, and they deserve a little bit better, quality than what I ended up with last night. So anyway, like I said, long overdue. I apologize to Hifiman for taking so long. I apologize to my viewers for taking so long, but still have to work for a living, still have to work a full-time job. So unfortunately, the $80 I made from YouTube last month doesn't pay the bills. So anyway, this is on loan from Hifiman for review. The current price on this is $19.99 in US dollars, and that is a substantial discount from the $3,500 that this headphone has been since it came out. So an exceptional headphone in my opinion for that price. So I guess I kind of gave it away. I guess you don't even need to watch the rest of the video. I said exceptional headphone, and it's true. I really like this headphone, and that's part of the reason it's taken me so long, because this headphone deserves a little effort into the review. This isn't the kind of headphone that you can listen to for an hour, throw a review together. I've put probably 100 hours on this headphone since I've had it, easily. And in fact, choose this most of the time when I'm just listening for my own pleasure and not, working on a review. And it's just a headphone that works with almost all music, not quite everything, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. So anyway, this is a wired, full-size, over-the-ear, planar magnetic headphone. And it does use stealth magnets. This was one of the first Hifiman headphones that did use stealth magnets. And the version 1 and version 2 of the HE1000 didn't. But then later, then this was the first of the 1000 series, and then later they came out with what's called the HE1000 Stealth. Some people call it the version 2 Stealth. Some people call it the version 3 Stealth, but it's a little bit confusing how they named it. But anyway, the short version of what stealth magnets are: in a planar magnetic headphone, you've got a diaphragm, and you've got magnets that run across, like in bars, on usually both the inside and outside. Well, anyway, if you look at those magnets from the end, most of the time they're square or rectangle. The stealth magnets look like a half circle. They're rounded on two sides. The reason for that is as the sound waves are passing over the magnets on the inside towards your ear, the theory is that the round magnets will produce a smoother sound wave coming in and reaching your ear that doesn't have to go over squared off corners of magnets. So I'm not sure if reality is the same as theory, but I haven't heard a Hifiman stealth headphone that didn't sound good. So anyway, the impedance of this headphone is 35 ohms, and the sensitivity is 96 decibels. So for a planar magnetic headphone, it is actually very easy to drive. It's one of the easier to drive planars that I've heard. The weight comes in at 440 grams, which makes it kind of middle ground for a full-size headphone like this. It's not light, but it's not heavy, but it is very comfortable, except for the one issue I have with comfort. The weight isn't an issue at all. The clamping force isn't an issue, but I'll talk about this in a few minutes about how the long egg-shaped ear cups that ride low on my jaw actually give me a little bit of trouble with my TMJ, but it's not a major problem. I just need to take a break for a few minutes about once an hour. So anyway, this headphone comes with 3 cables, and they connect to the ear cups with 3.5 millimeter connectors, which is pretty much standard for Hifiman and standard for a lot of other brands. So the first cable, I think this one's 10 feet long. It comes with a 1/4 inch connector, and it's not a 3.5 with an adapter. It is a true 1/4 inch, so you don't have an adapter that you could possibly lose signal quality. Then it does come with a separate cable. This one's shorter and has a 3.5 at a 90-degree angle, which would be ideal for using this with a portable device, even though I can't see a lot of people using a headphone this big and this heavy or this expensive out, jogging or, running around town, but I guess it's possible that someone's going to want to. Also, these egg-shaped ear cups with the what do they call them? Window-shaped grills. They have virtually no isolation. They don't keep any sound out, and they don't keep the music in. So, probably not the ideal headphone for portable use, in my opinion, but an excellent at-home, sitting in a big chair, listening to music headphone. So, I'll roll in and give you a better look at the headphone. As you can see, it's pretty much got the same shape and design as everything from the Edition SX up, except for the Susvara that has round ear cups, but this one does have the egg shape. The difference is when you get up this high in the line, you're looking at a lot of aluminum replacing plastic. You've got aluminum grills, aluminum trim around the ear cups, aluminum yokes, aluminum connectors and pieces here on the headband, stainless steel headband. I think the strap is suede. I'm not sure if it's real suede, but if it's an imitation, it's very real like it. It feels really nice. You got your adjusters that click up and down here, and lots of swivel. They swivel as far as you want them to. They swivel this way. Like I said, very comfortable, very large ear cups, plenty of room for your ears, enough clamping force that they don't feel like they're going to fall off if you lean forward, but not enough that it's squeezing my head at all. But I did want to mention, once again, go a little bit further with the fact, I'll show you what happens here, okay? With these egg-shaped ear cups, and I've mentioned this with a few other Hifiman headphones, with the egg-shaped ear cups, you can either have your ear up towards the top or towards the bottom. Okay, if I put my ear towards the bottom, then they're going to lift up like this. But the problem with that is the sound stage gets really narrow and really tall and doesn't sound realistic. So ideally, what you want to do is have your ear up in the top part of this, and you're going to get a much wider sound stage and a little less height, but much wider. Okay, but to do that, they're going to ride pretty low. And on me, you can see it's riding down below my jaw. Well, I've got an issue with TMJ, mostly in this side, and these long ear cups running down on my jaw do put just enough pressure that I start getting a little bit of aching in my jaw and a little bit of pain in front of my ear after about an hour. So about once an hour, I have to take a break from these. I have to take them off for about 5 minutes and just you know, let the pressure off of my jaw, and then I'm fine to listen to them for another hour. So it's not a major problem, but it is a little bit of an issue, and if you do have TMJ, you might want to consider that. Other than that, they're very comfortable, even though, like I said, not super light, but very comfortable. Did want to, before I got into my description before I talk about the sound of these, I did want to mention the equipment I'm using. First, let me mention the music. I listen to a combination of different types of rock, some pop, some electronic, a lot of acoustic music, and I really like acoustic music with female vocals. To me, acoustic instruments like guitars and string instruments and even pianos, it's really difficult for a headphone to duplicate those sounds and make them sound real. So they're a good way for me to judge a headphone, whether it's producing a realistic sound or not. And then I really like female vocals because that's a really tough test of a headphone, to reproduce female vocals where it sounds like they're real and not recorded. So anyway, and then also a little bit of orchestral music, and this headphone is probably one of the best I've heard for orchestral music. Okay, equipment, and I mention the equipment in my videos because I think it's very important. I one time saw a review, this was several years ago, and I'm not going to mention who did it or what the headphone was, but it was a review of a $4,000 headphone. And the guy that did the review, he was using I think about a $230 amp, and it was a tube amp that just wasn't an appropriate match for the headphone. And then he talked about how, you know, the headphone just didn't measure up to what it cost, you know. So also, you know, I think some headphones and some amps just have really good synergy and others don't. And so that's why I like to try every headphone with at least a few amps, you know, half a dozen if I can. And the same thing, you know, I like to try every amp with half a dozen headphones and find out what matches up the best and produces the best sound. So anyway, to start out with, my source, Cambridge Audio CD player, used as a transport. That's where most of my music comes from, is CDs. And then also I sometimes use my computer, which is a HP desktop, fairly new one. It's only a couple of years old, 4K resolution, all that. Well, anyway, I rip CDs to the computer in WAV lossless format, and then use the USB output from my computer into DACs that can accept USB. And so that's where my desktop amps and DACs and everything are cut. The source of them would be the computer itself. So anyway, as far as DACs that I used in the review of this headphone, I used the Hifiman EF400, which is a combination amp DAC. I used the iFi Audio Pro IDSD signature version, which is another combination amp DAC, and I will tell you right now, that is pretty much my favorite. That really brings out the best of this headphone. Very, very good match. In fact, you can see it in the picture behind me. That's the IDSD signature, and I just love the way it synergizes with this headphone. Also used the Audio GD R8, which is a R2R DAC, and the Topping D70S MQA version, which is my favorite of all the Topping DACs I've reviewed, even over the D90. Anyway, amps, the Audio GD Master 9 in a stack with the Audio GD R8, and then the Waveborn Edelweiss 3 Power Amp Plus, and that was actually my favorite amp with this. It's a tube amp, but it's a transformer coupled tube amp that puts out a clean 3 watts per channel, works really well with planar magnetic headphones, and I just love the way that amp and this headphone synergizes. In fact, the best, absolute best combo I came up with was using the Hi-Fi DAC that you see in the back as a DAC only running into the Waveborne amp, and that was an incredible combination with this headphone, the absolute best. But short of that, the built-in amp does work really well with the Hi-Fi. So anyway, and I also ran this with the Burson Conductor 3 reference, which is a really nice combination amp DAC that also works really well with this. But to be honest, you really don't need a whole lot of power with this, but this headphone does scale with, the better your equipment, the better it's going to sound. You know, I mean, this, I don't know where the limit is with this headphone, but every time I stepped up and, you know, the quality of amp and DAC, it just got better with this headphone. Anyway, headphones that I compared to this headphone, the Hifiman Aria Stealth, the Hifiman He1000Se Stealth, the ZMF Atrium Openback, Kennerton's two top-of-the-line headphones. They're top-of-the-line Openback, the Thror, and their top-of-the-line closeback, which is the Ragnar. And then I compared this to the lower priced, but surprisingly held its own very well, the JM Audio XTC2 Openback, and that is with the 64 ohm beryllium drivers. I got that in a few weeks ago and did a kind of a brief comparison, and I'll talk about each of the headphones a little later, so I won't try to, never mind, I'll just go on with my review. Kind of got lost there for a second. It's tough, you know, doing these reviews, even though I've got some notes, it's hard to put all this together and, you know, do a 40-minute review or whatever and not forget things or without kind of getting out of order. This isn't easy. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and I get to listen to a lot of equipment and, you know, for a while until most of it has to go back eventually. But, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy to do this, trying to hear little small differences between high-end equipment, you know, between DACs. Headphones are easier, but getting into doing reviews and comparing amps and DACs and stuff can get pretty tough. So anyway, so I guess I should talk about the sound of this headphone. So we'll start there. The tone balance of this headphone, I would say, is basically neutral with just a slight V shape, a slight emphasis in the bass, slight emphasis in the treble. And just for a reference, the headphone I most often use as my example of what I consider to be neutral is the Hifiman Sandara. That's a headphone that a lot of you have heard. And the treble might be slightly bright of neutral on that, but the rest of the frequency range of bass and all that, that's what I consider neutral. This does have a little more bass than the Sandara, definitely more sub bass, so that's why I'm saying this is a little bit V-shaped. But it's got, it's very even. This is probably one of the most linear headphones I've heard as far as frequency, that it doesn't have any missing spots. It doesn't have any deep valleys where a frequency is missing. It doesn't seem to have any peaks where a frequency is, you know, kind of overblown. It's just very linear, very smooth in the frequency response, and it's just about perfect as far as I'm concerned, unless you're a bass head. If you're a bass head, this probably isn't the headphone for you. It has very decent bass. It goes very low, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Well, I'll talk about bass now. This headphone has very good extension into the lower frequencies. It has very good sub bass. It's just not over or highly emphasized. Like I said, not a bass head headphone, but it should be satisfying to probably 90% of you. I personally like just a little slight bit of bass boost, maybe 3-4 decibels above what I would consider neutral, but I don't like heavy bass boost. Like the Hi-Fi, what do you call it? I can't think of the name of it right now. This little amp DAC here I have, the, what's it called? It'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, that has a 7 decibel bass boost, and to me that's just too much. But a lot of people like that. So anyway, if you're one of those people that uses 7 or 12 decibels of bass boost, this might not be the headphone for you. But like I said, the bass is very decent. The bass, like I said, extends very low, and it's very tight, very well controlled, it's not bloated, it's never muddy, it's never distorted. It's probably one of the cleanest headphones I've heard as far as bass. Just very tight, well-controlled, clean bass. Getting into the mids. I would say the mids on this are just slightly on the warm side of neutral. I notice it mostly in female vocals. They have a nice, warm, rich sound to them. They don't sound dry or sterile. And I really, really like the way the female vocals sound on this headphone. Not the absolute best. There's a couple headphones that I think do a little bit better with female vocals, but this is near the top. And like I said, just a nice smooth liquid sound, but yet not lacking any detail in the mid-range at all. Like I said, it doesn't sound distant, but it's not right in your face either. It's just kind of right, I would say middle ground. You know, some headphones have more, put the mid-range more up front, some it's more distance. I would say this is right there in the middle somewhere, and just about ideal. I really like it. And then treble, the treble on this, some people might consider it a little bit bright. If you're one of those people that thinks the Sundara is too bright, and there's quite a few out there, this headphone is probably as bright as the Sundara, but the treble is much cleaner, much more sharply focused, and less, it's never harsh, it's not fatiguing to me. So actually, even though the treble is slightly on the bright side, it never bothers me. It's never an issue. I can hear every little detail in the treble. The sparkle is there, you know, everything is there, and the treble is very even all the way through from the lower, mid, upper treble. There's no peaks or valleys, where some headphones have a very narrow peak right where cymbals are at to give it some sparkle, but everything else in the treble below that and above that is just kind of missing in action, and this headphone isn't like that. There is nothing in the frequency range of human hearing that this headphone isn't going to reproduce and that you're going to feel like you're missing. Getting into detail, one of this headphone's strongest points. This headphone is right up there at the very top of everything I've ever reviewed as far as detail. The only headphone that I've reviewed that I think is on the same level of detail as this, and that would be the HE1000 Stealth. Excuse me just a second. So, yeah, just fantastic detail, but yet it doesn't sound analytical. I've heard a couple of headphones that approach this in detail, but they had sort of a dry analytical sound. And this has the detail, but yet enough warmth that it doesn't feel harsh, or it doesn't sound harsh, it doesn't sound sterile. It's just very enjoyable. It's just incredible detail, but not fatiguing. Okay, soundstage. The soundstage of this headphone is very wide. It's as wide or wider, I would say wider than the HE1000 Stealth. Very wide as anything I've heard, pretty much. Also has a lot of height. Goes from, I hear sounds from way up here to way down there. More height than most headphones. And then, I'll be honest with you, I've never heard a Hifiman headphone that I was really impressed with the depth of the soundstage. Most of them, including the HE1000 Stealth, to me sound pretty two-dimensional. I just haven't heard a Hifiman that has good depth until this headphone. The 1000 SE actually has pretty decent depth to it, and I'm hearing sounds a lot further out in front of me and in different layers, you know, not just here and there, but at every layer in between. Every instrument in this is separate from the others, and each one has its own specific location and its own specific distance away. And that's one of the things I really love about this headphone. That's the that's the big advantage over this, over any of the lower priced Hifiman headphones. It just has that more, a greater depth to the sound stage, a more three-dimensional sound, and a more layered sound. Not only layered as far as out in front of me, but side to side. You know, some headphones you'll hear sounds right at your ear, and then you'll hear some further out. But with this headphone, I hear several steps in between, you know, different distances to different sounds. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about this headphone. And I'll go a little further into comparing this with the HE1000 Stealth in a minute. But I did want to mention that I did do a specific video comparing this to the HE1000 Stealth. So if you're trying to decide between those two, you might want to go back and watch that video, because I will be honest, I can totally understand why a lot of people would prefer the 1000 Stealth to the 1000 SE, and I'll talk about that further in a minute. But I personally like this one better, but it does depend on what kind of music I'm listening to also. So anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, imaging. This headphone has very precise, very pinpoint imaging. Not only does every sound, every instrument have its own location, but they're very pinpoint, very specific locations. Some headphones, you know, you'll hear like a bell ring in the distance, but it'll be coming from, you know, sort of a large area, maybe, you know, like the size of my hand. But with this headphone, if I hear like a bell ringing in the distance and a good recording, it can sound like it's coming from one tiny little point. And every instrument, when I listen to these, I hear every instrument coming from its own location, but they're not overlapping and not blended together. Each one has a specific point where it's coming from, with a lot of dark, empty space in between. That's one of the things I really enjoy about this headphone. Dynamics. Let me talk about separation first. That is, in my opinion, this headphone's strongest, that's its strength, is separation. This headphone separates every instrument, every voice, as good or probably better than any other headphone I've heard. I'm going to go ahead and say it. This headphone has the best separation of instruments of any headphone that I've heard, where there's just no overlap between them. I mean, I can put on some headphones and I just hear all the music coming from here and here, and all the instruments are just all mixed together and blended together. Where this headphone, I hear every instrument in its own location. They can be down here, they can be up here, they can be off to one side, they can be in the middle of my head or in front of my eyes. I mean, but every instrument just has its own location with no overlap, and especially if you're listening to orchestral music. I was listening to some Tchaikovsky, I can't have trouble with that one. Anyway, what was I listening to? I forget. It's been a while. Well, I was listening to that actually a few days ago, but I'm having trouble with my memory today. I never did figure out the name of that amp behind me. I'm sorry. I've had a long day. So anyway, yeah, right now it's like 10:30 at night, and I've put in a long day and get worn out. And I did this same video last night, so I'm a little mentally worn out right now. So please excuse me for not being able to think of names. But anyway, I was listening to orchestral music, and I was just blown away by how every instrument had its own location. You sit there, you turn off the lights, close your eyes, and you just visualize this orchestra out in front of you, and you can hear where every instrument is coming from, and really no overlap at all. This is a really good headphone for orchestral music. So anyway, what else? Dynamics. Not the most dynamic headphone in the world, but kind of middle of the road. Not super punchy, but not lacking in dynamics. It's a little bit softer sound than the HE1000 Stealth. So, and then I wanted to mention fatigue. I spoke about the comfort fatigue a little earlier, how they do ride a little low and do aggravate my TMJ just a little bit, and I do have to take, maybe a 5-minute break once an hour. But as far as the listening fatigue, I would say the listening fatigue is very low on these. The things that fatigue me as far as listening, number one is the volume too high, but I can actually listen to these pretty loud without feeling fatigue, for quite a while. The other thing is distorted treble, harsh, treble that just isn't clean will fatigue my ears real fast. And then the other thing, not as many people mention this, but distorted bass, bloated, muddy bass, especially up into the mid and upper bass, really fatigues my ears really fast, especially if it's emphasized and then distorted on top of that. That's a headphone I just can't tolerate for long at all. So I would say the fatigue on these is very, very low. And also isolation, I think I mentioned it earlier. These keep almost no sound out, and these leak more music into the room than almost any headphone I've heard. They're one of the worst as far as that. So if you want to try to listen to these in a quiet room with other people, they're going to hear your music. Except they're going to hear that real high frequency, no bass part of the music, and can be pretty annoying. My girlfriend hates that. She hates when I wear open back headphones and she can hear the music. So if I'm around her at night, I've got to go with closed back. So anyway, comparing these, I'm going to start with the HE1000 Stealth. Like I said, I did a whole video about that. So if you want more details, check that out. But just the short version, the 1000 Stealth has a deeper V to the sound. It has more emphasis in the bass, and the treble, I would say, is a little bit brighter on the Stealth. The Stealth, without a doubt, just does have a little more emphasis and a little more weight to the bass. It is a bassier headphone than this. And it's also more dynamic. It has more punch. So that's the reason I say that I understand why a lot of people would actually prefer the 1000 Stealth. It's right up there with the same assist with detail, but it has a little more weight to the bass, a little bit more punch to the bass, and a little bit brighter treble. And a lot of people are going to like that. It's a little bit more of what I would say a fun headphone, where this is more of an accurate audiophile headphone. If you're going to listen to rock music or pop or electronic music, I would say the 1000 Stealth is probably going to be the better choice for most people. Okay, but if you're going to listen to acoustic or jazz or orchestral music, this headphone is going to, in my opinion, is the better choice, because this headphone does have a deeper sound stage and more of a three-dimensional layered sound than the 1000 Stealth. So they both have their strong points. Neither one has weak points, but both of these headphones have their strengths. And like I said, I can see why it could go both ways. I can see why some people would like the 1000 Stealth, but like I said, I actually prefer this. If I was just sitting down to listen to music and just for my enjoyment, probably 4 out of 5 times I'm going to pick this over the Stealth. Okay, I compared this to the ZMF Atrium, and I also did an entire video on that, so if you want more details on that, check out that video. It's from a couple months ago. Anyway, the ZMF is more of a warmer, bassier headphone. It has a little less detail. This does out-detail the ZMF Atrium. What the Atrium has is a nice solid bass. I wouldn't say this goes lower, but the Atrium does have more weight to the bass. And the Atrium has a warmer mid-range, and I would say as far as female vocals, the ZMF Atrium is at the very top of my list, the best. I love female vocals with the Atrium. This one isn't bad, but it's not quite up there with the Atrium. This definitely has more energy in the treble than the Atrium. The Atrium kind of rolls off a little bit at the top end. I love both headphones, and it kind of depends on what I want to listen to. The Atrium's a little more laid back and probably the better choice for someone that wants to listen for hours. It is for me anyway. Also, the Atrium has round ear cuffs and very soft lambskin ear pads, and it doesn't ride down on my jaw, and I can listen to the Atrium for hours. The Atrium at 600 or 300 ohms is a little harder to drive, needs a little more amp, and in fact, to get the best out of the Atrium, you need to use a good OTL type tube amp. The Atrium just, it puts the Atrium up to another level using an OTL tube amp, and just gives it so much more depth and 3 dimensions, more so than this headphone. With the Atrium hooked up to the Felix Audio Elise, it has the most depth and most 3-dimensional sound of any headphone I've heard, even better than this one. So, it's up to you. I mean, I can't say one's better than the other. It's subjective. Everyone has their own personal taste. But anyway, if you want more details, check out my video. I compared this to both the Kennerton Thror, their flagship open back, and the Kennerton Ragnar planar version, which is their flagship closed back, and I love both of those headphones. Just real short version. This headphone goes deeper into the sub bass than the Thror. The mid bass is kind of the same. The Thror is a little warmer in the mid range. Female vocals have a little more warmth to them, but the vocals are a little more forward, a little more in your face with the Thror than they are with this. The vocals become a bigger part of the music with the Thror, where the music is the bigger part. There's more emphasis on the music with this headphone, little more emphasis on the vocals with the Thror. And then this, I'd say, slightly out-details the Thror. Not by a lot, but a little bit. The Ragnar, I've got the ECL03 memory foam ear pads and non-perforated on the Ragnar, and that gave it more sub-bass than the stock ear pads, and I love it that way. And the Ragnar hands down has the best sub-bass of any headphone I've ever heard. It is incredible, and way beyond this. It goes way lower and has a lot more weight to the sub bass. And listening to pop, rock, electronic music, I find the Ragnar a lot more exciting because of that low sub bass. into the mids. This actually has a little bit warmer mids than the Ragnar, and I actually prefer female vocals a little bit with this over the Ragnar. That's my one issue with the Ragnar, is it's very highly detailed, but the mids can sound slightly dry at times, where this has a little more warmth and richness. But I would say they're pretty close in the treble. This maybe goes a little, extends a little higher, a little more energy in the treble. The Ragnar has exceptional isolation both in and out. I can listen to that in the same room with my girlfriend. She doesn't hear anything coming out of the Ragnar. Another excellent headphone, and this would totally surprise me. Even though the 1000 SE has a huge wide soundstage, the Ragnar, believe it or not, and it's a closed back, has almost the same width to the soundstage as this headphone. It's right there. It's very close in width. It doesn't have the height to the soundstage, and probably about the same depth. But, and if I didn't mention it when comparing to the Thror actually has very good depth. The Thror is a little bit better as far as that three-dimensional depth than the 1000 SE. And then the last headphone, a couple weeks ago, I got in the JM Audio XTC open back, and that has 64 ohm beryllium drivers in it. And believe it or not, that headphone, which sells for $9.99, holds its own very well against this. To start with, it's very, very light, very comfortable, but really soft. Memory foam and lambskin ear pads is very comfortable. It definitely wins in the comfort. And it definitely has more bass and more weight to the bass. It's not quite as tight a bass, but it's definitely more bass emphasized in this headphone. So if you're a bass head, you're probably going to prefer that headphone. But anyway, but it's very good quality bass in the JM. And the most bass I've ever heard from an open back headphone. So I'm very kind of blown away by that. The JM has very nice, warm, rich, lush mid-range, even more so than this. Doesn't go quite as high in the treble as this does, and the JM does not quite reach the level of detail that this headphone does. And even though the JM separates everything very well, not quite to the level of this one. But I have nothing bad to say about the JM, and at half the price, it's a very good headphone. But and I haven't done my full review on that, but I'm going to try to get to that soon. So anyway, so bottom line, do I recommend this headphone? And that's an absolute yes. I love this headphone. It's one of my favorite headphones of anything I've heard so far. It's probably, I can almost say that this is the most overall well-balanced headphone I've heard. It just has no weaknesses other than the long ear cups and the little bit of pressure on my jaw. There is nothing that I don't like about this headphone, especially about the sound. Okay, occasionally if I'm listening to like classic rock or some types of music, electronic, I feel like it could use a little more bass. So once again, if you're a bass head, probably not the headphone for you. Excuse me just a second. But if you're looking for a super accurate audiophile headphone that's going to duplicate exactly what's on the recording, you're not going to miss out on anything. You're going to hear every last detail. If you're listening to acoustic music, jazz, orchestral music, it's going to be hard to find a headphone that will beat this. It's just absolutely fantastic with those types of music. So, like I said earlier, the 1000 Stealth has a little more weight to the bass, a little punchier sound, and if that's important to you, you might prefer that, and it's what, $700, $600 cheaper. But if you're just looking for the ultimate in accuracy, and for some reason, I'm not sure exactly why, but this headphone, one of the other advantages of this over the 1000 Stealth is, to me, this just makes the music sound more real. Especially, I notice it most in like acoustic guitars, any kind of, non-electric string instruments, and then also in piano music. It just makes everything sound so real. But more so than anything, there's a band called the Sundays. The album, can't think of the name of that. I'm doing bad tonight on names. Anyway, just a lot of acoustic guitar music. And I also noticed I was listening to Jewel, her first album, Pieces of You, and there's a lot of acoustic guitar. And the guitars just jump out and just sound so real, just like they're right there in the room with you, like they're 3 feet away. It just makes, so many instruments sound so real. And that's the part I really like about this headphone. And I'll be honest with you, I've got my year-end videos coming up, my best of awards. And without a doubt, this is going to win the best under 2000 category. And it's right up there as a contender for the best overall headphone at any price. So I'm hoping Hifiman will let me hang on to this for another few weeks or a month until I can work on those videos. I usually don't do them until the end of the year. I see some reviewers putting out year-end videos, like in early December, and there's still a possibility something could come in, right at the very end, like after Christmas, and might blow me away, and I wish I would have put it on my list, but it's too late by then. So I usually wait until the beginning of January to do my reviews, or my year-end reviews. So anyway, $1,999. I know that's not cheap. That's still way into the high end, but compared to the $3,500 it was, I would say at $3,500, this is a very good headphone for the money. For $1,999, it's a steal. This is an exceptional headphone for that price and competes with other headphones from other companies at up to twice that price. So yes, I very much recommend this. Unless you're just an extreme bass head and need a bunch of bass, then probably look somewhere else. But other than that, incredible headphone. And you say this is in your budget, but then that leaves you nothing for an amp. You can get by with, $100 amp, $200 amp for a while. It's still going to sound good, but eventually you're going to want to move up. I mean, like I said, the best one is the Sci-Fi back here, but that's a $3,250 amp DAC combination. And it is incredible, but it's definitely not cheap. So, you're looking at a pretty large investment. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you have, a couple $1,000s and can buy this headphone, you can get by Zendeck. That's the name. That's what I could not think of. This Sci-Fi DAC amp there, it's called the Zendeck. And that's actually the Zendeck one. That one sold for $129. That actually makes it sound pretty good. I mean, it's not going to make it sound the way that one does, but it sounds good. And if I had the money, I would buy this and then, buy a cheap amp DAC like that until I had the money to upgrade the amp DAC and never worry about upgrading. I mean, this is an end game headphone. This is a headphone that 99% of you could be happy with the rest of your life. Yeah, there's going to be a few that, need a Susvara or something like that. And I'll be honest, I haven't heard the Susvara yet. So I don't know if it's better, how much better it is, but short of hearing the Susvara or something similar, I could definitely live with this for the rest of my life. So I think it'd be a headphone that, like I said, 99% of you are never going to feel the need to upgrade from here. So I mean, you might want to side grade, or you may even want to downgrade for a different sound. You know, you might want something really bassy for, you know, a certain type of music or whatever. But I think most of you would be happy with this the rest of your life. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And the Headphone Experience over Facebook is up to almost 28,000 members. So you're all welcome to join. Like, see you over there. And once again, thanks for watching my video.